Alright, so welcome to the blockchain meetup. We're here at the Classic Crust Pizza in Phoenix, Arizona. They've got a Bitcoin ATM and they accept Bitcoin, so make sure to come here if you're in the area to support this place, because it has talk here, which is great. And at the monthly meeting this month, we're happy to have Marcus Brown, who is a former video game developer. Former video game developer who was bit by the Bitcoin bug in 2010 when CPU mining was all the rage for about 5 minutes. He's been following cryptocurrency and blockchain technology ever since, finally deciding to jump all in on Etherium and later Ethereum Classic. His other two passions are the Internet of Things and full-stack web development. He's hoping to build the killer dApp of the world computer, whichever one that ends up being. So everybody, give a little round of applause for Marcus Brown.
All right. So the slides I'm going to present tonight, they've been kind of passed around a little bit, which is actually a good thing. They were first presented at a London Ethereum meetup, and then later in Zurich, I believe, and then another version of them in Shanghai recently. So these slides are encouraged within the community to be presented as a full overview of Ethereum Classic. So all I did was I took the slides, put my own little snake on it, added a few more slides, and kind of updated it to where Ethereum Classic is today. So I'll be talking about the genesis of Ethereum Classic. I'll go into where it is right now and some of the stuff that we have coming down the pipe. So without further ado, we'll start out again. Like I said, we'll go over Ethereum Classic, its history. We'll talk about building a decentralized ecosystem, and what are some of the things we need to do that. So some of the new stuff I added in here that wasn't there before is we'll dig more into Ethereum Classic core development. So this is one of the things I do. If you didn't get it on the meetup, I maintain the Ethereum Classic version of F, which is the C++ Ethereum client. But at the same time, I also help out with some of the administrative issues that we have to deal with, organization, things like that. I've been running a full Ethereum Classic node on parity ever since it was a thing, stuff like that. So there's a lot we can talk about there. And then finally, we're going to go over basically the future. There's some products and services that are available now, but there's some really exciting things that are going to be coming down the pipe that I'm allowed to actually show you. So that should be pretty good. And I lost my connection. All right, so I guess all blockchain, our current blockchain. One second here. I lost my focus on the slides, so let's try to get it back. There we go. As I was saying, you could say all modern blockchains started with the invention of Bitcoin. Satoshi Nakamoto, otherwise known as not Craig Wright, otherwise known as not Dorian, created Bitcoin back in 2009 and set the world on fire. You heard Morpheus off camera, kind of letting us know that what's going on there. So last year, and this is actually kind of interesting because a lot of times people, they say, well, Ethereum's been around for a couple of years and this and that. The concept of Ethereum has been around for a few years, but the original implementation that was shipped is only a year old. It just celebrated its 1 year birthday in July. So Vitalik Buterin, if I'm saying his name right, he created Etherium, which promoted Turing complete smart contracts, meaning that you could run virtualized code in the blockchain and serialize or maintain its state so that in the blockchain it would always keep that same consistent state. So in May, the Decentralized Autonomous Organization, otherwise known as the DAO, created an investment fund to implement. Pause for a second. All right, we'll keep going. The DAO was created, and they started up a crowd sale. People were putting a lot of money into it because basically what the DAO did was promise companies that had no owners, that allowed people to come in and vote on different tasks or jobs they wanted to get done, and everything's handled through a Ethereum smart contract system without any so-called owners or anything like that. So without going into too much technical detail, because there's plenty of that online, the DAO was hacked on June 17th. 3.6 million Ether were stolen out of it, which at the time was worth about $70 million. So it was one of the largest heists in blockchain history. I don't remember, maybe somebody remembers the Mount Gox one back in the day, but this one was pretty significant. So that happened then. At the same time, the Ethereum Foundation, who's a group that governs Ethereum and decides its roadmap, its future, hires developers to develop features of it, they started trying to figure out a way to get the funds back to people who put money into the DAO. Obviously $70 million is anything to sneeze at, and investors were understandably upset, not knowing if they're going to be able to get their money back. So then out of the blue, well, actually, let me back up a tick, because there's kind of a gap here. So at that point, or at a certain point, the Ethereum Foundation and other members of the Ethereum community, basically they put it to a vote as to whether or not they wanted to hard fork in order to return the funds back to the original investors who put money into it. Basically, all that meant was they were gonna create a transaction that took the misappropriated funds out of the hacker's account and put them into an account that could be redistributed back to the original owners. So a lot of people kind of met that, with scorn and disdain, thinking that, okay, well, this is you're playing favorites. There's something else going on here. Yes, the smart contract was hacked. There was a flaw in it, an exploit that allowed it to be hacked. But at the same time, that's not something that we should be, breaking the immutability of the blockchain. So there was a lot of discussion back and forth. There's a lot of voting on back and forth. And eventually, the majority decided that to move forward with a hard fork to restore those funds. So then we get to our Vico, who's also known as Vit Navasti. He's an anonymous actor. He wrote a manifesto that he called the Crypto Decentralist Manifesto. And basically, he was, vehemently opposed against breaking the immutability of the blockchain, because that is one of the main points of having a blockchain, is that you don't go in and, rewrite the ledger. And his paper started to get, a bit of traction within the community. So on July 20th, the hard fork was executed. The majority of miners switched over to it, and it refunded the DAO, and then it split Ethereum across two networks. The reason why is because not all miners supported the hard fork, so a lot probably inspired by our Vicos. paper decided to stay on the original chain and oppose the hard fork. You know what, these slides here, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on because I just kind of summarize it just now. This is just a lot of background information on the DAO attack, you know, what happened. Just kind of putting it in layman's terms, but again, if you want more technical detail, talk to me afterwards or go online. I can point you to some resources. This goes into a little bit more detail about some of the proposals that were presented to the community once the Ether were misappropriated. And they all had varying degrees of pros and cons and yes votes and no votes. Now, one of the things that was mentioned, and obviously hindsight is 2020, is that there could have been a more legal approach taken when the hack happened. It seemed like it was kind of an afterthought, at least from the outside. It seemed that the Ethereum community thought that pushing for some sort of fork to restore the funds took higher priority than going through normal channels. You know, if you consider this a theft. So this slide talks about basically saying that, you know, Ethereum didn't really keep its word, and we're about to go into that in a second here. So there's this whole thing bandied about a lot in the Ethereum community and classic community called code is law, and in simplest terms, that just means that, you know, if you do have a world computer, if you do have a smart contract or a series of smart contracts that are running, whatever they're running is the law, but it's the law in terms of what's running on the blockchain. That's not saying that it has a legal basis, you know, in the real world. None of this stuff has actually been tried yet. None of it's been brought, you know, to court or anything like that. But code is law is specifically saying, okay, well, you know, even if you have a buggy smart contract, that invariant of immutability should not be violated, you know, just because something was hacked or mistakes were made. It's disconnecting the infrastructure, which is Ethereum and its blockchain, from human behavior. And the comparison there is to something we use every day, phone networks, internet, whatever. Those aren't things that are, no, usually those things are governed by a set of laws, but the way that they function themselves is, you know, invariant, a single purpose, and are usually not violated. So yeah, these are some other tenets that kind of led into the birth of Ethereum Classic. Developers should take responsibility for legal and regulatory requirements. There are a lot of people out there who said that Slockit, the people who were responsible for the DAO, played it really fast and loose, that, you know, they should have taken their time when representing what people were investing in. There's a whole lot more drama surrounding that I'm not going to really get into. Actual screencast back up again. All right, we're back. So, moving on. I'm going to talk a little bit about after the birth of Ethereum Classic, or during the birth and immediately after, like, kind of what were some of the things that happened to get us to this point today. So, the people who are behind Ethereum Classic, myself as one of the core developers, and Mike as well, we believe in running a decentralized ecosystem. We do believe in the original Ethereum tenets of unstoppable applications. Oops. That should be neutral, open, and immutable. Those are pretty self-explanatory, but basically it's saying there shouldn't be any controlling entity that should be able to come in and ad hoc decide or change the direction of your ecosystem. If that's what you're trying to build, if you're trying to build unstoppable applications. Open. Infrastructure should be open and accessible by anyone that shares scalability. That's pretty obvious. Whether it's open source, etc. Your platform needs to be able to be reviewed, augmented, built, improved upon, bug fixed by anybody. And most importantly, the one that comes up all the time is immutable. Unless you're improving the protocol to move things forward, you should not be going into the blockchain and changing any of its state, ever. So in order to have this decentralized infrastructure, it's not easy enough to just say, okay, well, from the protocol side, from the development side, all that will be decentralized. Those things that were on the last slide will be open source. We'll have developers here, working here, doing this thing, doing that thing.
Sorry.
All right, sounds like a deep fryer.
It's a bunch of chicken wings to throw in there.
Oh man, I think we're gonna smell in a second.
Yeah, we can pause for a second maybe.
Sure. We're gonna pause for a second.
Okay. Everybody take a break. Did a drink or eat an apple drink or anything. I'm gonna get some more soda. Well, speaking of, we're still paused, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of other controversial altcoins, has anybody else here tried scheme it? I know Morphe says. Anybody else?
I was here.
Okay. He has. Okay, yeah. Why don't you guys give me your what's your username? I mean, you don't have to tell me, but you can follow me. Or you write it down here. Yes, I know. What did you do?
I know I had statements. I think in like July. Oh, really? Yeah, I did see them in July. Yeah, he got a few days before I did. He's more active than I am.
Okay.
But, no, Steven's done fun.
Yeah. It's got its issues, but.
Oh, yeah. He hangs out in the chat room. I'll peek in every house.
Yeah.
So that's all.
All right. Well, sorry about that. I figured I had it written down. So. All right.
Okay.
All right. Let me know when we're rolling.
Oh my God. All right.
Rolling. Keep the doggies rolling.
All right. Here we go. Oh.
I like it.
Alright, I'm rolling. I'm just adjusting the focus again. I don't know how well this will come out, but at least we'll have like options.
Yeah, the screencast should be good.
Yeah.
All right. So what I was saying before our most recent pause is to have a decentralized ecosystem, all aspects need to be decentralized. Not just the tech side, but the community also needs to have a decentralized infrastructure and administration. So when we say community, we're talking about marketing, educating users and developers, developing dApps. Administration, we're talking about governance. So basically the developers come into some form of consensus, and we can talk about that a little bit later. Finance management, whether we're raising funds through donations or through dApps or through some sort of affiliate program or whatever, how do we dig that out and decide which projects should get those funds? Yeah, decentralize all aspects of the classic ecosystem. Now, as far as the technology branch goes, we need and we have a strong globally distributed team of self-motivated developers. The people who are currently core developers have all volunteered. They've all jumped in because they believe at least in some of the ideals that were kind of presented earlier about being neutral, open, and immutable, or some combination thereof. And this kind of goes over like what some of the things that people have done so far. So right now we're looking at fixing replay issues on the network, and let me take a step back and explain what that is, because I don't think a previous slide covered that. So when a blockchain does a hard fork and the non-forked portion continues along its path, well, all of those keys that were valid on the original fork are also valid on the hard fork itself. And basically what happens at the apex, or at the point of that hard fork, is that you create two currencies. You create the hard fork currency and you create the classic currency. So what that means is these two forks are no longer in sync. And the fork that has a little more hashing power, in this case Ethereum, is going to outpace the classic fork, which doesn't have as much hashing power, and generate find a lot more blocks, generate a lot more transactions. So what a replay attack is you can make a transaction on the blockchain, say move funds from address A to address B. Well, because that address before the fork already existed on the original non-fork chain, what can happen is that transaction can be replayed once the nonce is brought to the same one that was on the chain that's further along, and essentially move that money from underneath you where you can't recover it again. So that's been one of the biggest issues that's been plaguing Classic and to some extent Ethereum, is that people, they discover, oh well, you know what, I have an equal balance of pre-fork coins in Classic as I do on Ether, and I want to move those around. If you just do that straight up as a normal transaction, then you're opening yourself up to a replay attack. The way to get around that, the easiest way to get around that, is to send it to a smart contract that will automatically split those funds for you. So it'll take the Classic balance and send it to some new unique address that you generated. It'll take the forked and send it to the existing address. And then you're safe from replay attacks. But still, it's not that obvious, it's not that intuitive, and it's still biting people to this day. So that's one of the things that we're looking at, mitigating on the Classic side, is how do we prevent that from happening. We have the primary Ethereum node clients ported over to Ethereum Classic. The main ones that are being produced by the Etherium Foundation team themselves are Geth, Mist, Ethereum J, and Pi Ethereum. Parodies is developed by a separate group, but it had classic support pretty much right out of the gate. So there was enough support there to run classic nodes and have them talk to one another. People came out and they released, if I remember correctly, at least 3 out of the gate block explorers and other tools that track the network. We're gonna kind of speed along because I'm gonna talk more about this difficulty bomb and some of the other stuff that we got, that we're talking about and we got planned. So this talks about the decentralized community and what makes that up. You may have heard that there was a Declaration of Independence that was released early on in the classic days. Did you read that?
No.
It basically said a lot of stuff I'm kind of saying now about the reasons why classic wanted to be, not forked and be its own separate thing. It also has a code of principles in it. To me, that's the biggest takeaway because it kind of outlines some development principles that like the larger Ethereum classic community can get behind. I should have pulled it up in a different browser window, but that's online. That's on the main Ethereum site as well. So the team who developed this set of slides originally, led by Dr. Avatar Sarah, if I'm saying his name correctly, I hope so, started globetrotting and set up a meetup in London, followed by Zurich, and then Shanghai. I don't know when the Melbourne one's supposed to be coming up. It might be happening soon. But basically, it was to get the word out about why Ethereum Classic is here, why it's not going anywhere, but more importantly, how to get more investors and traders on board with the idea that it's important to support a blockchain that has those principles in place. And marketing, app development, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now this is the fun one. Now we get this question raised a lot as well. People are always asking us, what is the governance? What is the governance? What is the governance of Classic? The reason why they ask that is because Ethereum and Ethereum Foundation, they have a BFDL by the name of Vitalik Buterin, and his word is pretty, it holds a lot of weight, and he has a sort of a cult of personality built around him.
So for people who don't know, right, that BFDL means Benevolent Dictator for Life.
Yes.
Which people like Larry Wall of Pearl is sort of a BFDL, and Linus Torvalds for. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's the structure of the Ethereum Foundation, and they have their own, they have other governance rules in place. But let's just say that, a lot of the word of God comes out of Vitalik's, his tweets and posts and things like that, and that's kind of what kind of drives the sentiment there. We're not trying to be anarchists, but at the same time, we don't believe that we necessarily need, a figurehead or somebody like that who's sitting at the helm, making those calls or functioning as a lightning rod. We prefer to keep even that part decentralized. So this is kind of a sticky wicket because although we've gotten some stuff done in the past month and a half, we still have not settled on what our full process of governance is going to be. It's still a hot topic, but it's still being worked on. One of the reasons why we kind of want to wrap things up on that is because we will need that to start to determine, as we raise funds for core development, how to allocate those funds, et cetera, et cetera. Now here's a doozy. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this. This was developed about a month ago when these slides were first developed. This is the roadmap that, at the time, we loosely came together and defined. So these dates aren't hard and fast, and as a matter of fact, we're currently working on shifting a lot of the priorities here based on the feedback that we're getting from miners and traders and other members of the community. We're trying to figure out how best to plan out this roadmap of what we want to do in each of these key areas: technology, community, and administration. But I can talk a little bit about that as we're gonna have some more like kind of focused slides on it. All right, so here's the fun stuff, because this is some of the stuff I'm involved in, and so one of the funny things that we like to joke about is on Reddit, maybe Twitter, I guess. People like to say, you know, well, there's no developers over there in plastic. They don't have anybody developing anything. So how's that coin even going to survive? You know, it's just a pump and dump scam, blah 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 blah. Well, this screen grab again is like from a month ago. So you had 30 people registered who had volunteered in an open GitHub issue that's still up there today, where they wanted to volunteer their services, or they just jumped in and they just started doing work. So that development community has been there, it's growing. Yeah, Mike joined us a couple weeks ago. We got people jumping in every day. We even have people who are Etherium Foundation members who are just hopping in on our Slack, kind of curious to see how things are going. And to that point, you know, we, at least me personally and several other core developers, we don't have a problem with working with the Etherium Foundation and Ethereum on these tools. As it stands, they're the same network. They're just on two different chains. So, yeah, the one I'm trying to maintain, by Ethereum, Ethereum J, etc. There's cross-pollination there and opportunities there for us to improve each side until there's a point where the two chains actually do make a hard split. So yeah, it's all good. And I'll talk to Ethereum Foundation developers, and a lot of them hold the same sentiment. Okay, so I'll modify this a little bit from the original slides, but so these are the things that we're currently focused on. We want to diffuse the difficulty bomb. I'll go into that in a second as we get that slide. We want to mitigate replay attacks. I'll talk a little bit about that. We want to maybe not fix, maybe I could use a better word there, but fix the classic monetary policy and possible options. We'll go into that on that slide. And then we're also developing tools and libraries that are going to be specific for the Ethereum Classic ecosystem. So this is a doozy, and this is the main thing that's on everybody's lips right now. This is difficulty bomb. Essentially, there is a bit of code that went in Frontier, maybe, I don't know, was it Frontier, of Ethereum that set sort of a hard date of when Ethereum had to make a choice to move to proof of stake or some other consensus algorithm. So it gave them time to develop something else. At the same time, it made it so that after a certain point, the difficulty will be so high that miners won't be able to mine coin and produce new Ethereum. So the reason why this is such a big deal is that the core of Ethereum Classic believes that for the time being, Classic should remain proof of work, meaning we should support the miners who are spending their resources solving these cryptographic puzzles to mint new coins for the foreseeable future until we can find, you know, some sort of consensus that we all agree that is better than that. The Ethereum Foundation is leading the way on a proof of stake algorithm called Casper. And what I want to detail about Casper, proof of stake essentially says if you stake X amount of ether that you hold, you're basically putting out a guarantee that you're going to sign off on these transactions and these blocks. If you try to do something nefarious, then you're at risk of losing your stake. So it's a hot topic because there are a lot of miners out there that, if they were to switch from Ethereum to Ethereum Classic, would provide a huge boost to both the monetary value of Ethereum Classic and the health of the network as a whole. And we want to stay in closer communication and on the same page as miners, because they're the people that keep the system running in the first place. So back to this difficulty bomb. Proof of work will become impractical by early next year, so there's not a lot of time to do something about this. And the plan is that we're going to do something about it. That we've had discussions as recently as earlier this morning about the timetable of when we want to address this difficulty bomb and modify the code in all of these clients to support a strategy for either freezing it or delaying it. And right now the consensus is on delaying it, and we'll go into that. I think I do have some slides on that, and I also have a spreadsheet as well that a developer came up with that will kind of illustrate that a little bit. But even today, a core developer by the name of Splix submitted a ECIP. So Ethereum has its Ethereum improvement protocols. We have our Ethereum Classic improvement protocols. Proposals, and he submitted his that detailed a means of delaying the difficulty bomb, which basically buys us time to come up with a solution that everybody can agree on and keep miners in the fold at the same time. Replay attacks. Don't really need to rehash like what they are, but what's interesting is that this is a little bit of drama, but it happened, so I might as well say what happened. But after the hard fork happened and Ethereum Classic stuck around, it didn't die as the foundation expected it to. Vitalik made a post talking about it and giving his opinion on it, and he said, paraphrasing, they can change their knots, their Genesis knots, and make their transactions incompatible with the Ethereum network, and get rid of the replay attacks because you won't be able to validate those transactions after that point. Well, that kind of rankled a lot of feathers because the Ethereum Foundation developed the hard fork, and the onus was on them to make sure that if you're doing a fork, that it's not going to be compatible with the network that it's forking from. So there was a lot of debate. There was a lot of vitriol going back and forth over that. My opinion is that whoever should have done what, whenever, we just need to do it on the classic side. We need to be the better team, and we need to go in and take care of it because, it's, like I said, it's still hurt people today, and so I've been working on it, but I had to get ready for this presentation. Hopefully by tomorrow, if not, then Thursday, I can have my own ECIP posted that basically just details that process of how we can divorce ourselves completely from the Ethereum network, which will get rid of replay attacks entirely. What we want to do is we want to put that out at the same time as we do an extension to the difficulty bomb, because we don't want to hard fork, over and over again. You're going to lose more and more people that way because they're either not going to agree with what you're trying to do, or they're going to be running old clients, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a change that we still need to talk about this a little bit more, but we want to get this rolled up in the same code that's going to push forward the delay for the difficulty button. Monetary policy. This is not really my purview, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. But basically, from my understanding, is that one of the flaws of Ethereum is that Ether, the token, the coin of Ethereum, it serves a dual purpose. It's speculated on and used as cryptocurrency, but it's also used for gas to run smart contracts. So the original design of Ethereum says, well, there's no upper limit on the Ether that we produce because it's going to be used for smart contracts. Well, that kind of goes counter to normal inflation of what will happen if you have infinite coins being generated. So there's a discussion that's going on there. Like I said, I'm not really that much involved in this discussion, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. There's others in the community that can articulate this way better than I could. But this is also a thing that we're looking at addressing. These are some of the options that have been put forth so far. The pros and cons of, keeping the unlimited coins being generated, doing a halving system like Bitcoin currently does, or just having like a fixed supply with reward adjustments per epoch. I don't want to go into technical detail about that in the epoch, but so another thing the core developers are working on a daily basis is tools and libraries that are going to be that promote and bring help to the Classic ecosystem. There's some front-end UI components that are pretty useful for building dApps, but they're licensed under either the GPL or the LGPL. That kind of makes it harder for commercial entities to jump in and do dApp development. Larger companies, because there's like a whole lot of legal things that they go through in order to be able to support GPL. So we're looking at basically re-implementing some of those things, rewriting them from scratch so they can be under a more permissive license. Another thing we're trying to do is we're separating a lot of the core libraries. Not separating. That's not a good word, but we're preparing for the point in time where Classic will do a full breakaway from Ethereum by looking at some of the core libraries that are similar and forking those and doing development on those ourselves. Another thing that we're looking at is creating more robust Java frameworks for both fintech and larger corporations. I found this out recently myself that there's like a lot of Fortune 500 companies that will not allow tech like Node.js, JavaScript, things like that on their back end. They only support JavaScript or C++ or things like that. So we kind of want to have some stuff in place that allows them to get up on Classic blockchain a lot faster and smoother. And anything that we can come up with that is not on the fork chain that we think will improve it. So now we're going to talk about some of the stuff that, there's a couple things here that are currently there, but then the rest are things that are actually coming into the fold. And this is like the cool shit here. And some of this stuff is literally like days old, so it's really exciting. Data feeds for Ethereum Classic development. So if you spend any time with smart contracts, one of the bigger limitations is how do smart contracts get data from the outside world? Well, the main player in that space is called Oracleize It. They recently tweeted that they will support Classic fully. So as soon as there's dApps that are developed that are going to use Oracleize, they're going to push their infrastructure over to the Classic blockchain. they committed to that. There's another system out there called Feedbase. I've only looked at it a little bit, but it also provides ways of having streams of data that can be accessed from within a smart contract. Honestly, I don't know a lot about how that works. And then there's one that started almost at the beginning of Ethereum Classic itself called the Open Oracle Project. It's not dead, but it hasn't seen a lot of development lately. It's similar to Oracleize, but it wants to be decentralized. It doesn't want to have, you know, a centralized entity like Oracleize behind it. So that's on GitHub. You know, if anybody's interested in that. Phononomy. I love this name. It's like the best name. So the tagline for Phononomy is funding and reputation for a decentralized economy. What is that? What does that mean? It's crowdfunding and project funding and bounties that are reputation based, all in one convenient interface and package, backed by smart contracts. So this was originally announced in Shanghai a week ago or so, and some of the core developers have been given access to a beta of it in order to start playing around with it. And that might be the better way to actually go into what all it provides. But let's go through these slides first, and then maybe we'll do a quick demo.
And just to clarify first, is this something that's Classic is developing separate from the main Ethereum?
Yes.
Or is it something, okay.
So the things I'm talking about now are things that are specifically targeting Classic in order to build Classic's value and promote its use. You know what? I'm gonna leave these. I mean, these are in the slides. These slides are online. I'm not gonna go over all of these. Since the site is up, it's easier to just show you. So we will do that right now. We'll go ahead and we'll bring that up. This is gonna be a little bit weird because I gotta kind of look at this screen. Oops. There. I'm coming a little bit this way so I can actually kind of see what's going on here. So this is the beta Phononomy site. The primary on this is a core developer by the name of Dr. Etherium, the guy I was telling you about who has been going around the world promoting Ethereum Classic via this slide deck. Basically, from a really simple view, it functions just like Kickstarter. So let's take a look at one of these campaigns that already exist. There's a couple that are up here that I haven't seen the staff on them, so I don't know. And so on Phononomy, you create campaigns, and you can create milestones within those campaigns, similar to Indiegogo and Kickstarter in some respects.
Good question.
Yeah.
Is this so it's a website? Is it interacting with the Classic blockchain and all the data and stuff? Or?
Some of it is. Okay. This is beta. It might even be called alpha. But I'm gonna actually I'll show you. I just want to show you like what a
sorry.
campaign look like. I can actually show you the steps of creating a new campaign. So yeah, this is all details that you would fill out in the campaign creation itself. So this is a reputation for, I'm assuming bounties that were claimed because they can be created separately from the campaigns themselves. But let's go in. Let's go ahead and actually create a campaign or start creating one. There's a lot of data to fill out in creating a new campaign. We're not going to be able to go from start to finish. This is one I started the other day, but let's just start so you can see the interface that's there. There's a lot of rules, regulations, of course. Overview. Pick a category of the thing that you're trying to promote. Go ahead and fill out the things that you would normally fill out for like a crowdfunding campaign. Fill out the team, and this will also tie into the reputation system and show you, if these are teams that are already registered with Phononomy, they're given reputation. I think you can add people who are not actually registered on the site as well. The core details of the campaign that you want to build, and all this stuff is functional right now. I'm not going to spend time to actually fill all of these values out. Maybe this one's not Alright, but here's the money right here. So this is the actual contract that will back this campaign, and this contract is deployed when the contract is created. Sorry, when the campaign is created. So this will actually handle everything from donations to deposits, the milestones, pulling money back out. It's all being done in the smart contract here. Some of the other more details as well. So this is, again, exclusively for a Classic. This is being developed as a flagship application that kind of shows, the power of Classic and some of the things that can be built on top of it.
And so, like you said, it's kind of an alpha/beta mode right now. But even in that mode, if one were to go on there right now, start one deploy, the contract actually gets deployed.
Yeah, and I'm pretty certain it's Morton, Ethereum testnet.
Okay. Yeah.
Right now, those two are. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're pushing stuff to Morton and you're working on a Classic.
Right.
Cool. Yeah. There we go. All right. This is one that's it was talked about a week or so ago, a couple weeks ago, but then basically it's gotten it's gotten off the ground. It's now rolling. It's called Tortuga Trading. One sentence elevator pitch is basically it's over the transfer sales of any good or service, including Ethereum itself, person to person. So what happens is two people meet up and they say, hey, I want to sell some Ether, and I got cash for it. Well, they deploy this smart contract that defines that transaction, and once that handoff is made, they both vote into that contract, and the deal is done. The contract is resolved, and everybody walks away happy. Now, this was posted yesterday, and it has its own separate set of slides. I'm just going to paste one real quick because it's more visual. This is done by a core developer by the name of Cody Burns. He has some really, really cool ideas that he drops all the time, and I think this is the first one that he actually wants to run with. So here's a problem Tortuga is trying to solve. How do you get Ethereum or Ethereum Classic, either one? Well, you gotta take your money, you gotta put it in the bank, you gotta go to Coinbase, you gotta convert it to Bitcoin. This is for Ethereum Classic. Ethereum's a little bit easier, maybe 2 less steps. Convert it to Bitcoin, shape-shift it into Ethereum Classic, and then finally you have it. It's pretty ridiculous. So why can't we just trade between 2 wallets? Well, I want Ether and I have cash and I want to buy it. Or I'm sorry, I have cash. I want cash and I want Ether. So how do we do this? I don't know who you are, so let's use the smart contracts to facilitate this for us. So the plan is Webform creates a contract and deploys it. There'll be some sort of mapping interface where you can find somebody who's interested in completing that trade. They sign into that contract. These people meet up somewhere, past the Crust Pizza hopefully, and they do some. They trade the fiat for Ether. They both sign off on the vote. The Ether is released out of the contract to the buyer. Done. Boom. That's it. And the point here is that why does it have to be Ether? Why can't it be chicken, I guess? Why can't it be video games or food or futures or stocks or anything like that that can be traded in person or for value? So he's dropped a little roadmap of how he wants to proceed with this. So that's also on the horizon. That one I'm really excited about. All right. So what else we got going on? Early on. A site called Stampery, they kind of also voiced their disdain for the hard fork and how that whole situation was handled. So they jumped in pro ETC. It's another big one. You might know who they are. And basically said they're going to be ETC only.
Somewhere out in China, right?
Yeah. Well, you're not talking about like the mining pool, like CHBTC or
Something like that.
yeah, I believe so. Jax recently added support for Classic. Unfortunately, Apple was being Apple, and even though Ether is the same and functions the same on Classic as it does, with the fork chain, it's 2 different chains. They currently don't allow Classic Ether on the App Store. So on every other platform that Jack supports, you can use Ethereum Classic in the wallet, and you can also split it, in case you're new to it and you want to pull your funds from one chain to the other. And then there's one that I'm involved with a couple other core developers called Vault for now. We don't have an official name for it, but essentially it's an online multi-signature wallet that supports 2-factor authentication. So think of a wallet that's being managed by a central entity, but that has the guarantee that without the 2-factor authentication, nobody else can unlock that wallet and access those funds except for the person who signed on and created it. We'll have something to show with that within a week or 2. We're getting pretty close on that. Mike's also helping us out with that, working on the HT wallet implementation. And there were a couple more that I've rolled up here with that are kind of escaping right now. But on the Ethereum Classic Slack, on the subreddit, there's things being announced every day. There's one. There's a Civilization clone that you that you play for real money because you're putting an ether into it that actually runs on both chains simultaneously. So that is really cool. And I don't know if they announced that they're going to drop some more news on it. I don't know if they shipped yet. I think it was a 24-hour window or something like that. But yeah, and then like I said, there's more that are popping up all the time. So that. Do you have any questions?
I did have Corona vodka with strawberries, raspberries.
Well, first of all, let's thank the speakers so well. And yeah, if there's any questions or if people wanted the cameras turned off, I don't know.
So my question may not be directly in regards to the slide itself, but so I know that the Dow hacker had contributed 1,000 each plastic.
Yes.
Has he contributed any cents and have any other coins moved?
No, he is not. And so, like 3 weeks ago now, maybe longer, we started an initiative to create a multi-sig wallet that more developers could sign off on. So I think we're looking at like a 7 out of 10 either to sign off on the transaction order for it to be valid. The current donation address is held by Arvico, Bitnavasti, which is sort of fine. I mean, as developers, we kind of sort of trust them, kind of got the ball rolling and everything, but everybody will feel a lot more comfortable if those funds were in a more, controlled wallet. So, go back to your question. No, he's not contributed anymore since the 1,000 ETC that he put in there. Our current consensus is to hold on to that money in a separate account and not do anything with it until we have a better idea. It's really complicated. Who that money belongs to, does it belong to the people who were on the original fork, who lost it, now all recovered it because of the hard fork? Was it really stolen, et cetera, et cetera? There's a lot of different opinions. There's been no real legal way in. One thing I find really interesting about this is that, unlike Bitcoin, or I think Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency that's actually has a designation of property, in the United States. And there's no other crypto that has that distinction. So there's a question of, if it went to court, there was something brought up against it, like what is it? Does it get a definition at that point? What is it? It's also the whole thing about like the DAO hack itself. Was it a theft? Were you stealing property? Were you stealing things, or were you exploiting something? There's a lot wrapped up into it, but for us, the safest approach is to not touch the money, not use it for anything. Once our multi-sig, and I think we're literally like a day away from getting that set up and deployed. Once our multi-sig wallet is set up, we're going to move, our vehicle's going to move all of those funds except for that 1,000 ETC into the multi-sig wallet. And then the other 1,000 will probably move to some other wallet somewhere, and we'll just sit.
I think the plan is to freeze it for 6 months or so.
And was that the last transaction you made for that?
I believe you transferred that into another address shortly after that 1,000 transfer.
Yeah. The bulk of it into another, but I don't think it's moved since then. He hasn't moved it since to any exchanges or tried to shapeshift anything, because if he did, it would have been all over, everything. Because they're watching those addresses like,
Is the Etherium Foundation, because I know they had, I had heard that they had, well, I don't know if it was the Etherium Foundation, but it was some people who were attached to the White Hat group, who had moved some funds to an exchange, like they were getting ready to cash it out. And then it sounded like some of the exchanges
split up the funds into fiat, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then got a lot of flack and moved it back. Or
Yeah.
most of it, what they could.
Yeah.
Conversion.
So are they still holding on to all that?
No, they actually initiated a process to return what they recovered from the dial hacker to at whatever ratio available to the original. So now that we call that dial C because of dial classic.
Right.
So they do have a contract set up to refund dial holders. It's kind of complicated because I don't know if it's people who traded. Is it the people who had it before the fork, or people who are still trading it after the
I
fork?
think it was before. Before holdings before.
Okay, all right. But yeah, what you were saying was people they're kind of worried because they didn't state their intent before they started moving stuff to exchanges and trying to exchange it. And then later said that they were doing it because they thought that the dial holder, the people who held dial, wanted it in ether or whatever. So to be honest with you, I haven't really paid a lot of attention to that. I try to stay out of the drama as much as possible, or if I'm looking at any of it, then I sort of keep quiet about it unless it's something I gotta jump in on. It's like some sort of technical inaccuracy or something like that. But I had a few DAO like 100 for the hard fork. I was sitting in my Jack's wallet. So afterwards, I redeemed it, and got the little ether back out of it, and then whatever's on the DAO C, I honestly don't care about at all. Yeah, it's just the sooner we move on from all of that, the better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I did want to shout out the people who contributed to these slides. It's a team effort from the get-go. We do some of the original core developers. I know there's other people who have contributed to these as well. My apologies, I don't have anyone here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And we're all over the place. The only thing I'm missing here is the Reddit, the subreddit. But our main website, we Twitter, Facebook, blah blah blah. We just spun up Discord. Mike and I, we want to work on setting up our first developers call over Discord's voice chat. We think it will go a long way for the core developers to sort of hear each other's voices and have a easier way of communicating. So did we say what kind of timeline we wanted to do?
No, we haven't decided yet.
Okay.
We need to poll and see what times will work best
Yeah.
for everyone.
The core developers are spread out across the world. There's some in Russia, avatars all over the place. So it's gonna be fun getting that scheduled. That whole thing. Now I did have.
I had a quick question.
Oh sure.
Just because, I'm sure someone was brought up, Augur getting pretty close. Is there anything going on with Augur in Ethereum Classic, or?
Not to my knowledge. Augur, I believe, came out and said they were 100% Ethereum. There was some talk from a few people who said that they, wanted to kind of replicate Augur on the classic blockchain, but I don't think anything has come of that at all. From a practical standpoint, Augur is just not a collection of smart contracts. It does have its own system of oracles. It does have servers that sit there and monitor blockchain, and there's a bunch of other stuff going on behind the scenes as well. You have people who are running it, you have marketing, so on and so forth. So I think it's a little bit naive for people just want to say, oh well, we'll just contracts open source or whatever. We'll just call those. It's a lot more involved. But as far as I know, Gnosis, Augur, and a few of the other major ones that have kind of come out of stealth recently are not announcing support for the classic blockchain.
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. If you guys don't mind, I kind of was going to show. So Cody, the guy who put the Tortuga stuff together, he also put together this killer spreadsheet that maps out the difficulty bomb. basically lists out the block difficulty that increases at an exponential rate. So this is the way it currently is. This is the current code, and basically this tells you like by what era? It tells you the approximate date that things get like insane, and kind of like this. I don't know why those are here, but let's just look at this.
I think they're out of range or something.
It was working when I first came over, so let's reload these guys. There we go. Good old Google Sheets. Alright, so, you know, by March 5th, 2018, this, I'm sorry, I can't see this number from where I'm sitting. Is that 2 minutes a block? That's in seconds? 720, right? And it keeps going until it gets, you know, slower and slower to confirm transactions. So there's two options that we were discussing. The one that we think we want to roll with is the delay, but the freeze, which would freeze the current bomb that's in place. You still end up with the same exponential rise, just at a much slower rate. So you start hitting those numbers, you know, 2021.
Middle of 2018 instead of middle of 2017.
Exactly. Now, the one that we are pretty much in consensus with, and the one that splits details of his ECIP that he dropped today, is the delay. The delay basically will sort of halt difficulty increase to a future block date, and then ramp it up again. And what that allows us to do is we can actually, it allows us a lot of flexibility, because we can actually evaluate Casper, the proof of stake that the foundation is behind. We can actually see if that's something that we want to roll with, or test out at least. There's also some hybrid proof of work, proof of stake consensus algorithms out there that we can explore as well. So the delay was in place. Exponential increase moved from every 100K to every 200K blocks. It gives some, it's smaller. Let me try to reload this page. Well, as you can see, it's a more consistent rate, and then it gives us enough time to figure something out. So, you know, by middle of the summer 2018, things will start to exponentially increase from there. So, like I said earlier, we're trying to move fast on this. We want to get the code together for the respective clients and get this into testing ASAP. So that we can basically come out to the wider community and say, hey, you know, here's our plan, here's what we found out, this is what's going to happen. We don't anticipate miners having an issue with this, because obviously it keeps them in the game for a lot longer, especially if Ethereum moves to Casper somewhere in this window here. And as I said earlier, you know, we want miners in our camp. And I just, for whatever reason, I pulled up his ECI. Yeah, that's all I got.
It seems like that whole difficulty bomb thing, it seems like definitely an opportunity to differentiate with the Ethereum main chain.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've got a huge community of Ethereum miners right now who, you know, come next year, they may not have really anywhere to go other than
Right.
Ethereum Classic. So,
Right.
you know, I think it's a pretty big opportunity for the classic chain. I think to have a place for them to go to once that comes into effect. I don't. Have you guys talked about whether the Ethereum main chain is gonna hard fork? Like if there's gonna be any people who say, all right, well we'll keep the current Ethereum fork going, but we don't want to hard fork in cash flow.
Yeah.
You know, we want to just keep proof of work.
Right. I mean, it's definitely possible. One would imagine that they would want to come over to Classic at that point.
You would think so?
You know, especially since the bulk of the DAO thing has been resolved. Now, the fact that the hacker has 3.6 million Ether or whatever, I mean, let's just be practical. If he moves that stuff to exchanges or he tries to go through shapeshift, I'm not gonna let that stuff go through. That was always like kind of the sentiment, even when all this stuff was getting discussed in the first place. Like, why would they allow him if they froze the white hat groups funds? Then why wouldn't they freeze his as well? A lot of people think gloom and doom that he's going to crash the market and et cetera, all this type of stuff. But when that starts to fade, I think if there are people who are either unhappy or unwilling to move to Casper, we could probably see them, shift back in the classic direction, which at that point would offer a lot more value with some of the dApps and things that we're running on top of that.
Yeah, I gotta think that's it's kind of like the fork has already happened, but there's still a contention happening.
I see what you mean, yeah, because I think there probably are people who might not want Casper, but they also don't want they also don't want the DAO. You know what I mean?
Well,
they
yeah.
like what's happened so far in Ethereum, but then they might not like Casper, so there could be another fork. We're not like forks of forks. But it's interesting though. You look at Bitcoin, you have Litecoin, Dogecoin. I mean, there's honestly it could happen that there end up being dozens of these Ethereum forks. I mean, I don't know. I see, but it could happen, right? I mean,
another thing that keeps coming up, and I gotta be honest, I haven't drilled down that deep into Casper, but there's gonna have to be a buy-in. If you're not already holding that Ether to stake. So like, what happens to somebody who's like, oh, I like this Ethereum thing. Okay, well, wait, do I have to buy 1,200 Ether to jump in and get this going? And it's valued at $12.
Right. And that was the question I had for you guys. Not that I don't even know, but I wonder if there's been discussion about just getting rid of the difficulty bomb completely, right? I mean, because if you guys don't seem like you're hot on, like you said, maybe if Casper works great, you guys go, that's great, fine.
But the thing is, we couldn't, if that was the case and we decided Casper wasn't for us, we couldn't go back.
Couldn't go back. Okay.
Yeah. Like, what desire do the miners have to come back at that point?
Right.
Yeah. So we just put a delay on it, and if we do decide to stay proof of work fully, then we just get rid of the bomb code, or we move to a hybrid.
Right. There's some really interesting stuff out there. A guy by the name of Charles Hoskins, he's been suggesting a lot of academic papers for us to look at and review and stuff like that. There's a paper on a hybrid proof of work, proof of stake scheme originally developed for Bitcoin, but it has some considerations for Ethereum in the paper itself. It's possible it could be adapted as well, and then we might be able to get the best of both worlds.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned that, because I forget what I was listening to, but some YouTube video or podcast recently where Vital was talking, and he was talking about the history of Ethereum, and someone asked him sort of like, how did it come to pass that you decided to write your own thing and everything? And at least from what I recall, what he talked about was he started writing a fork of PrimeCoin, right? Which isn't that a proof of work, proof of stake hybrid based on PureCoin? Or is it, maybe it's only proof of work, I might be wrong. But anyway, yeah.
What I remember about prime coin was that it was meant to be CPU.
It's prime number proof of
Yeah,
work.
yeah.
They were
Okay,
generating
maybe it's not. I
trying
thought
to
it
find
was.
these prime numbers
Yeah.
was the goal of it.
Right.
And they put out a CPU algorithm for everybody to mine while the core people have been finding prime numbers with GPUs for several years already. And they figured if they can get enough people on board, well, with our GPUs, we'll make ourselves a whole lot of money.
Gotcha.
That's funny. I didn't even know that part. That's interesting. I think I got confused because PureCoin
There's
is
usually an angle as to how the developer is going to make himself rich,
right.
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
You got to pre-mine. That's how you do it.
Well, we need to have this ICO where I'm going to
Yeah.
raise millions of dollars.
You know what? You
to
know what's
promise you the future of this wonderful program that I'm going to be building for you guys.
You know what kind of like makes me sad is that that one of the things that the DAO did, and maybe some of the other earlier dApps that were kind of being brought on Ethereum, it's kind of got a lot of people in this mindset of, oh well, if I invest in this thing, when it launches, you know, I'm gonna have a big payday or whatever. And I see stuff that like looks pretty sketchy still today.
Like the OneCoin.
Yeah.
By the most recent, highly funded scam.
But you jump in the Reddit thread and people are saying, oh well, where's the ICO? How do I
How
find
do I
it?
find it?
And
It's
just
almost
like,
scary
no.
how easy it seems, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it is scary. It's like how
The evolution of altcoins has been pretty interesting over the years because it started out where you were just launching a coin every other day and just hyping it, and now you have to start adding value to it
Right.
or ICO it with some product, and,
Right.
and it's
Or you
just
have to
getting
make it-
more elaborate to the scheme that
Yeah.
it is to make money.
Yeah.
But it's too bad because there are interesting things that you know what I mean. There are cool things that are happening, and there are some interesting coins that are, like I mentioned, Steam earlier. It's not perfect, but it's simply, to me, it's an interesting thing because it's they're doing something interesting. Whether it ends up being big long term or not, who knows? But there are interesting projects out there, but it can be really hard until they reach some size.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell which one's a
The
complete
real
scam
value
and which
is
one's
in the network of participants,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
That's where most of these currencies are deriving any kind of real world value.
One thing that really excites me about the Ethereum ecosystem and the classic, whatever, is that there are some smart contracts that you can invest in, not as like an ICO or crowdfund or whatever, but for example, there's one I played around with before the hard fork called VDice, and he lets you invest, and you get a cut over,
Interesting.
or with the house edge, and depending on how much you invest, I made a couple ether off of that. Just playing around with it. Those type of things I really like. I like stuff that kind of improves the robustness and health. I mean, you're investing in it, which means that people can make larger bets, and do some other things with it as well as supporting it.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I want to see more dApps that incentivize people who are running oracles or off-chain servers that are interacting with the blockchain. So there's a few out there. There's BTC Relay, which lets you associate fees with Bitcoin block headers that are stored in Ethereum smart contract. There's Ethereum alarm clock that you basically say, this is how much I want to donate or give up to have this service wake up my smart contract at some point in the future. This one is escaping me right now, but the reason why I like those is because if you kind of turnkey those things and make it easier for people to install them, you improve those services, but then you allow people to make money off of them as well. And you create markets that way. So I don't know. There's a lot to explore in that area, I think.
this might be a little bit of a controversial question, but how do you guys feel about, you know, I mean, Ethereum Classic is basically branding itself as the immutable, you know, code is law blockchain. And I personally think some of the, I don't know, interesting smart contracts would be things like malware or, you know, things that, like a command and control server for
Like darknet type
yeah,
of things.
I mean those kinds of smart contracts that, like, you know, you can't really run it on Bitcoin, and you need some sort of decentralized computing infrastructure to operate that, and you're trying to put that onto a network where it's not going to get censored because, you know, frankly, Ethereum has already kind of shown that they don't have a problem with if you identify a contract that's causing a problem, they're going to cut it off.
Right.
Is there any reluctance or concern about, you know, maybe being associated with those kinds of things?
It's safe to say that, like, yeah, we don't really want to be associated with those types of things.
I think anything that involves money is going to track that sort of thing, regardless if you want it or not. So no matter what you put out there that involves money, there's going to be the bad side to it. It's just what you focus on, I guess. I mean, as Bitcoin grew, it was trended as the drug market money, you know, and now it's proving useful and as a store of value and such.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I mean, yeah, I don't want to be a victim of it.
Right.
And I try to, you know, protect myself, but I kind of think that that's an interesting, I mean, if nothing else, just to kind of see how that plays out.
Yeah.
Not to say that I, you know, support or do any of that kind of stuff, but it is interesting just to see how that would develop over time.
Well, Ethereum doesn't, in the EVM, it doesn't really have any built-in, like, you know, privacy features. There was a proof of concept of verifying ZK snarks, which is the underlying tech under Zero Cash, by modifying parity, which is really cool. But that's because that process is very expensive, and it would be pretty much prohibitively expensive to do, you know, a smart contract. People have been coming up with other things. Somebody did release a mixer like last week. It's not perfect, but it's like a start or whatever. So I don't know. I think that there are systems better suited to that currently, like Monero. Isn't there another one that's coming?
Monero is all the rage right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely better coins to do that with. Bitcoin's
Not saying that it wouldn't happen, you know,
Right.
on Classic or Ethereum, but
I think if I can clarify, like, I think the question is this, and you can let me know, or maybe this is my question, I guess. I mean, like, what if, you know, we all know how, like, the DAO became, right? It was at its peak, it was what, $150 million worth, or so, I don't remember, it was something like that, right? It was a lot when it was at the peak, and Ethereum's price was high. So, like, what happens if, you know, the price of Ethereum Classic goes up, and then, you know, you have to end up with this smart contract with $150 million of it out of $300 million, let's say, in Ethereum Classic as a whole. But it turns out it's like, you know, the assassination politics implementation or something, you know. So, like, what happened right at that point? You guys are in that hard position, right, where now you're like, I mean, no, you really are. I guess the thing is that can happen with any. Like people are just spending money with Bitcoin or whatever. It's like there are monetary transactions happening, but I guess it becomes, you know, really in these there's all this logic happening in the core, and then like you're working to maintain. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's the point. Is there a plan to deal with something like that, or is the plan deciding to not deal with that? Right.
The current plan, I think, we're gonna say.
Well, I think the main idea is to build companies around Ethereum Classic that are neutral towards what's actually operating within So if something does come their way, they're just, well, we're just here to provide service.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, there's been a little bit of discussion, but it's been mostly mudslinging back and forth.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I was good. Oh, sorry.
I'm just saying, them saying, oh, well, you know, these classic guys, they're okay with the crimes being committed, things like that. I used to do some console hacking back in the day, and I broke my laws, but you know, it was kind of like on the line, right? Because some of the stuff I developed, somebody else could take it and run pirated games on that console, on that gaming console. So I don't know. It's none of this stuff is really been legally defined. There's no only Bitcoin, as far as I'm aware, has had it. However, there was a resolution passed the other day where, you know, basically telling the government, yo, we need to start creating policy on blockchains and cryptocurrencies. So there's some stuff coming out of the pipe, and I don't know. It might be time to invest in some Monero on it. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too because you always find there are a lot of parallels. Obviously, people always draw parallels with the internet's growth and then cryptocurrency's growth. But there are actually some other, like, more subtle parallels that are interesting. Is that, like, if you remember, I don't know, you know, like 10 years ago or a little bit more, we might be talking about, what if someone posts something on my website and it's bad? Because I mean, that was a big concern. Now it's like nobody even cares anymore. But it was like 10 or 15 years ago, people actually were concerned about that. And
I think there was just a ruling passed recently about links to illegal content or trademark content. Now the person linking is actually being held responsible in a specific country or something.
Right, and one of the things I was remembering was back then people that operated forums wondered whether they should censor the forums or whether they should just kind of like not have non-censorship. If I remember, part of it was, at least for a while, it was better to just, you know, either like not censor it, because if you censored it, now you became liable for everything. If you censored this one thing, you were saying, I censor stuff, so then if you didn't censor something else, you were then liable or something.
As a host of data, if you did not get involved, you could not be held legally responsible. But once you started nitpicking into the data set and pulling and doing that sort of stuff, you could be held liable.
So that's what I wonder about with Ethereum, right? And so I'm kind of neutral on the whole, trying to be neutral on the whole Ethereum versus Ethereum Classic thing.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting question to me, right? So since they did that, does it set them up to be legally liable to have to do that even for things they don't want to censor?
I mean, they talk about, like, saying...
It's very possible. Especially once it starts, if it does go to a court litigation and a law does come from that, then then you never know what will happen in the future of that. So it definitely adds liability to them. It doesn't take any away.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are, you know, all public figures who, you know, someone could basically go knock on their door and say, hey, we really, really want you to make this change, and it would be great if you could do this, and if not, then, you know,
like the Bitfinex hack just recently. Like,
Yeah.
let's just roll that back real quick.
I mean, you know, people say it's like a slippery slope, but
there was a quote attributed to Vitalik today. It was translated from Russian. I don't know. I can't read Russian, so I don't know if it's true or not. But basically, he said, well, you know, we're looking at stuff like these hard forks to fix these thefts and things like that. If you're a smaller company or entity, you're on your own. You know, we got to kind of gauge, like. So I think they're okay with.
Changing history?
Not being immutable, yes, changing history. And that's part of the separation.
well, it just that doesn't seem interesting. As interesting to me as having code that is running autonomously that
Right.
you know is unstoppable.
Right. But see, now, ever since the DAO hack broke, there's been a huge push. Microsoft's released papers, and there's all these researchers who are coming up with formal verifications of Solidity code or EVM code, and best practices and things like that. So at least there's like a, you know, much bigger view, or sorry, look at like what's going on with these contracts. There's also stuff that supports migrations and things like that, so you can, you know, replace the contract if need be via interface. You want to break the contracts up into smaller ones and do it that way. Not saying everything's gonna be perfect, but at least there's now, you know, some ways for operators to come in and clean up messes if it happen to arise.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think you had it up earlier. It was like 5% of the community voted for the hard fork, and then 1% voted against it, and then 94% didn't vote one way or the other, and that was kind of like.
I'm in the 94, man. I was lurking in all the Ethereum things and Reddit or wherever else, and I talked to a colleague about it, and expressed my rage to him, but I never. The whole vote thing happened within a matter of a couple of days.
Yeah.
And the problem with the vote was, by default, you voted yes for a fork.
Yeah.
Right.
So you had to actually explicitly state that you were not wanting a fork until you vote no. And if you didn't do anything, you just got lumped into the consensus.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I guess when you look at the fork decision, that's one reason why I think Classic is, it's continuing on the way that it is, and I think, it also has the potential, this is my opinion, obviously, but in the future, once there are things like changing proof of stake, some of these other hard forks that will be coming down the line, I think more and more people are going to be taking a step back and saying, is this what I really signed up for with this?
Right.
Wait a minute, I still have, all my pre-fork Ether, so I'm just gonna, I think I'm just gonna split this, and I think I might stick on the Classic side.
Yeah, that's why it's important to us to have like that backbone there, and
Right.
I don't know. For me, when I signed up, it was it's an opportunity for a fresh start, and there's like so many smart people involved in Classic. People way smarter than me that are coming up with all of this cool shit, and we definitely are trying to keep traders and miners in our camp. It's been a little bit up and down lately, but with the Fundonomy I showed and Tortuga and some of the other stuff that's coming out, we think it's going to kind of bolster more.
Fundonomy should be pretty cool. I know Indiegogo is working on a similar type of platform,
Oh, really?
not built on smart contracts, but to allow fundraising like that. But I think it's going to be really nice to have that on the blockchain and smart contracts, especially on the Classic side.
Yeah.
Is there ever any discussion of changing the name of something, like changing it to like Smoke or something? You know what I mean? Because that would Dash went from Darkcoin to Dash, and now sometimes I don't even the rebranding works eventually, right? If you do. So I mean, not that you would have to, but I guess it seems like an interesting thing to consider because
It's been considered.
Yeah. Here, what's that?
Let's go with Ether.
You just
they call it Ether.
There's been some names proposed, like Aether.
Ether Classic or Ether. What was it?
There's even one like it's Ethereum or something.
Ethereum for or something.
Well, so my take on it is the trademark thing is very hot button right now. I don't know if we're talking about this like
We were
before
talking
started,
about it, yeah,
right?
and I don't even have a strong opinion. I just think it.
Well,
interesting question.
I'm still recording for
Yeah,
the,
okay,
for the
cool. Yep.
thing, so I'll just repeat it
Yeah.
now. But you know, the strong opinion, at least from the classic side, is that the foundation trademarked Ethereum because they didn't want somebody to grab it and squat on it and then go after people and sue them for it. It wasn't never really intended for them to, you know, crush other things that they didn't like. There's been like more than a dozen, or maybe,
Thanks for
you know, dApps and other things that have Ethereum as part of their name
Right.
that have never been an issue before until Classic. So,
Yeah.
you know, one begs the question. Okay, there's some pettiness going on here. There's some, you know.
Then you alienate anyone else who's already using the Ethereum
Right.
name in their products. So
Right.
if you have Ethereum products on the Ethereum chain and then you start attacking anyone using the Ethereum
Yep.
name, you're attacking your own brand.
Some people are saying, oh, well, you know, it's confusing. People were trying to invest, but come on, man. Really, if you're investing in cryptocurrency, like the most valuable thing you should invest in, then you better know what the hell you're doing. But I mean, honestly, it's as Classic moves further away from Ethereum, it'll probably become more of a bigger push for a rebranding. You know, that's my opinion.
Isn't there still a coin called Bitcoin Dark?
Yeah, there's
I mean,
quite
it's
a
like
few.
there's several. So there is precedent. I mean, like I said, I kind of just don't have a strong opinion either way, but I think there's precedent for coins, for all coins that kept part of the original name. So
I mean, I could also see the rationale of, hey, wait a minute, we're not the ones who forked here, so why should we rename ourselves?
yes,
Yeah, that's been brought up as well.
yeah, of course. No, I know.
As again, I think that hopefully as you know, after Classic does its first hard fork, which hopefully we'll have a bunch of things wrapped up into that, or it builds some really strong applications. A lot of this